And welcome back to the channel. Mr. Acolyte here, coming at you with my beginner's guide for how to play Marvel Tokon. It's finally here. One of the most anticipated fighting games ever has finally launched. And in this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to get out there and start playing some Tokon. This guide is designed to be very easy to follow and very easy to use. Whether you are familiar with fighting games or you're brand new, you shouldn't have any trouble following along. By the time you're done, you should have a great understanding of how this game works. As usual, timestamps will be down below so you can see all the different sections that this guide is going to cover. If you find any of this useful at all, I would greatly appreciate a like. Big guides like this do take a lot of time and effort, so putting a like on the video does help me out a ton, and I do greatly appreciate it. I got all sorts of stuff planned, so consider subscribing if you're a fan of Tokon and you want to see more in the future. But with all that being said, we got a lot to cover, so let's not waste any time. Jump right on into it. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning by covering the game's UI. We can't exactly do much if we don't know what all this information on the screen means. Starting at the top of the screen with the health bars, right off the bat, this is where Tokon sets itself apart from a lot of other tag games you may have played in the past. Despite the fact that this is a 4v4 game, you only actually have one shared health bar. You can see here, if I deal damage to Storm on the opposing team, of course I'll knock down some of her health. But if Storm were to tag into, let's say, Magneto, you can see that none of the health changes. The health does not regen because there is a tag. Magneto does not have his own health bar. The entire health bar at the top is shared by all four characters. Basically what this means is Tokon gives you a lot of freedom in the way you choose to play the game. If you're the type of player that feels a little intimidated by tag games or by the fact that usually in a tag game you have to learn multiple characters, this game gives you the option of playing it as a 1v1 since there are no health benefits to tagging. This means if you do want to play this as a 1v1 fighting game, you're not really penalized for it. However, on the other hand, if you do enjoy tag fighters and you do want to learn your whole team, there are a lot of benefits for that too. So the devs found a very clever way of sort of meeting everybody in the middle, and you can basically play this game almost any way you want to. Now, continuing on with the health bar itself. As I said before, you don't get any health back from tagging or switching characters. However, there still is a recoverable life mechanic. If you take a look at Storm's health bar once again, this game, like most other fighting games, has chip damage. Meaning when you block a special move, you take a little bit of damage, but you can see that damage is recoverable. So even though I am chipping Storm's life for her blocking my projectile here, as long as she goes a certain amount of time without taking any extra damage, that life will be recoverable. And on the subject of chip damage, the answer is no, you cannot be chipped to death in this game. Even if you have 1% left in the middle of a match, and someone throws a projectile at you or does a special move on your block, you will not die. The opponent does actually have to hit you and get that final attack to land in order to score a KO. Next, let's talk about the team icons. Located beside the health bar, these four icons show your currently selected team. The character on top will always show your point character, the character that you are actively controlling, while the three icons on the bottom show your available teammates. Anytime one of those three icons is lit up, your teammates can be called into the match either as an assist to help you with an attack, or they can be directly tagged into. You can see that when I tagged from Spidey to Carnage, they actually switched positions. So Carnage is now on top. He has become my point character that I'm going to be controlling. And Spider-Man has gone into the reserve, so he can now be called as an assist. We're going to dive into a lot more detail about both calling assists and tagging later in the guide. But for now, the main thing is just familiarize yourself with what the icons mean and keep in mind that the positions can rotate depending on the actions you choose during the match. Moving on to the Assemble gauge, located directly beneath the health bar. This gauge is one of your most powerful and important resources. Basically, this gauge allows you to do team actions. Anytime you do a special team action, it'll cost you one of these bars. Now, there are a ton of ways to use these, and we're going to cover a lot of those much later in the guide. But for now, once again, just keep in mind the fact that this is a very important gauge, and basically anything having to do with your teammates is probably going to spend up one of these very valuable bars. And last but not least, at the bottom of the screen, we've got the skill gauge, also known as the super bar. This one is very easy to explain because it's essentially the same as almost any other fighting game ever made that has a super bar. The super bar powers up your attacks. You can see here with Spider-Man, if I were to shoot a projectile here, his standard web ball projectile, looks like that. But if I spend some of my meter, I can do the enhanced version, what the community calls an EX. If I do the EX web ball, you can see it was a much more powerful version, and it cost me a little bit of my meter. So each of those bars at the bottom is essentially one available EX. Also, like most other fighting games, you can use this meter to do super attacks. And to build this meter in the first place, you simply have to make contact with the opponent, whether that is you attacking them or them attacking you. And of course, there's a few more things you can do with your super bar that we'll talk about a little bit later, but for now, those are the basics. All right, now that we understand what all the UI elements mean, let's move on to breaking down the basic game mechanics. We'll go ahead and start with movement. Keeping the tradition of most other tag fighters, Tokon gives you a lot of mobility options. Starting with the absolute basics, you can walk back and forward simply by holding back or forward. Double tapping forward will give you a forward dash. You can also hold the button down to continue the dash into a run. This allows you to cover a lot of distance very quickly. Similarly, you can hit back to backdash and create space. Up allows you to jump. While in the air, you can hit up in a direction again to double jump. And if you hit down before jumping, you can do a super jump. During a super jump, you're still allowed to double jump. And of course, since this is a tag fighter, you can also air dash simply by hitting forward or back while airborne. Air dashes can be done during super jumps as well. While you're airborne, you only get one extra air action, so you always have to choose between doing a double jump or a air dash. Putting all these actions together gives you a lot of mobility options and allows you to move very freely across the screen. All right, now that we've covered the basics of movement, let's go ahead and start talking about our basic attack options. Starting with our 3 standard strike buttons: light, medium, and heavy. All 3 of these buttons can be done standing, crouching, or jumping. For your light attacks come out very fast and have very short recovery. This makes them great for up-close pressure. Medium buttons usually have pretty generous range as well as recovery. This makes them great pokes whether you're a fair distance away or if you're right on top of the opponent. Both your crouching light and crouching medium force the opponent to block low. This makes both options really, really good at applying pressure. Heavy attacks. These usually come out the slowest and have the most recovery, but in exchange, they usually do the most damage when you actually connect them. This makes heavy attacks very, very good for combos. As long as they make contact with the opponent, all three of your standard attack buttons can be chained together to form a string. There's a ton of different ways you can chain your attacks together to create strings. However, there are some notable restrictions. Your strings can only go from weak to strong. For example, a light can cancel directly into a medium, as we've shown before, but a medium cannot cancel into a light. Also, at the time of this recording, you can only connect 4 attack buttons before you are locked out. So you can see there, I did 2 lights and 2 mediums. That means I could no longer cancel into my heavies. So when you're constructing both your offensive block strings and your combo strings, keep that in mind that this game is hard-coded with a 4-button limit. Now, beside basic chains, which we just covered, you also have the option of doing auto combos. Auto combos work similar to chains, except with a auto combo, you simply press the same button repeatedly. For example, the light auto combo, this is done by simply tapping the light button. Tap M for the medium version, and tap H for the heavy version. If you're new to fighting games, or you're simply more on the casual side and you're not looking to learn a bunch of crazy notations, on hit, auto combos can be a decent way of getting some pretty okay damage. But in the long run, I would recommend learning how to do some actual combos, even basic ones, which we will be covering later on in the guide. Moving on to our next button, let's go ahead and talk about a really fun one, and that is the unique button. The unique button is similar to light, medium, and heavy, except it is a single button that does something special and unique to that specific character. For example, if I press unique with Spidey here, he will instantly do a web zip. This is his unique action. It allows him to get in from basically anywhere on screen, and he can even use it to just traverse the screen itself. While Storm, on the other hand, if I press unique with her, it allows her to control the wind. A really fun aspect of this game is just how different every character feels, and a lot of that comes down to the unique button. Having one of the standard attack buttons do something special for every single character is something that I'm really glad Arxis brought back from some of their older games. Moving on, the next button to cover is the assemble button. From here on out, I'll be calling this the assist button, just to make things easier, because that's exactly what it does. When you press assemble, it calls your available assist. Going hand in hand with the assist button is the tag button. When you press the tag button, you can probably guess, it causes you to immediately tag. As I said before, we're going to go into a lot of detail on both tagging and assists later in the guide, but for now, just keep in mind that each of these actions can be done with a single button press. And speaking of single button presses, this game also offers a skill button, also known as the special move button. When you press the skill button, it will, as the name implies, do one of your special moves for you. You can do quarter circle forward or 236 light, and boom, I'll shoot out a web ball projectile, or I can simply just press the skill button and boom, I got my web ball out. Let's say I wanted to do Spidey's web bomb, down light. Instead of doing that, I can simply do down skill button. And then Spider Sense, the dreaded DP motion, forward quarter circle forward. A lot of people have trouble doing this input. Even people who are, pretty into fighting games have trouble doing DPs. If you are one of those, you have the option, instead of doing DP into light, I can simply press forward in skill and boom. And to give my opinion on the skill button real quick, even if you are someone who is extremely experienced with fighting games or you don't have any trouble doing the inputs, there are still situations where it is a valuable tool, simply due to the fact that, first of all, it's impossible to mess up the input, but also the speed factor. For example, something like inputting a DP, it takes an extra second for you to buffer that many inputs versus simply pressing forward and another button. So let's say a situation where I'm trying to counter an attack with Spider-Man here. The extra second that it takes to buffer it, if I react a little bit late, I'm gonna get hit. However, with the use of the skill button, there is no buffer, and I have that much more time to just instantly press forward on a button. So as you can see, there's definitely advantages to using the skill button, even if it does do a little bit less damage. The next button we need to discuss is the quick assemble button. This is essentially your team attack button. Anytime you press quick assemble, it'll use one of your assemble gauges up at the top, the green one, to do a team attack. Now, there are a lot of use cases for this one button. We're gonna break all those down later, but for now, just keep it in the back of your mind that the assemble button is used for team attacks. And the last standard attack we need to cover is the throw. Throw is done by pressing medium and heavy at the same time. Throws, of course, are unblockable, so they are the main way of opening up a defensive opponent. And to break throw, you simply have to press throw yourself before the animation starts up. But it can get a little bit awkward when you're just outside of throw range. Because, for example, like let's say that I poke Storm here and then I go for a throw. You see that Spidey still does that running animation. So unless you are directly next to them, that's the only way you won't get the run. So keep that in mind, because if you try to go for a throw and your character suddenly starts running, there's a good chance you're going to get tagged out of it. And it can be kind of like a pain point when you first get on the game. So yeah, keep it in mind, because it's something that definitely takes some getting used to. Okay, so now that we've covered all of our basic attack options, it's time to discuss something extremely important that I wouldn't usually bring up in a starter guide, but for Tokon, I feel it's actually unavoidable. And that, as you can probably guess from what's on screen right now, is the discussion about button mapping. So, as you probably realize from everything that we just got through covering, this game has a lot of buttons. And for better or for worse, all the buttons get a lot of usage throughout the match. You're constantly pressing buttons in this game, and almost every button that we talked about, you're going to be using pretty much nonstop. So that leads to a situation where your controller has to be mapped out almost perfectly in order for the game to feel comfortable. And that's probably one of this game's biggest beginner traps, is just not having any sort of direction or knowing how to map your button so that everything feels comfortable and intuitive. So in this section, I'd like to just give my own advice on where to map all of the basic buttons so that everything just feels more comfortable and this game is easier to learn. I will put a disclaimer here though, as this is only my opinion. I mean, this is my guide, of course, everything that I say here is my opinion, but I want to specify for this specifically because there's really nothing more subjective than a controller layout in a video game. So what's comfortable for me might not be as comfortable for you, but I'm pretty confident that the layout that I play with is worth trying out at least, because I play with what I would call the legacy setup. So as you can see with the virtual controller here, kind of spoiling what I'm about to tell you, if you look at the face buttons there, pretend this is a standard PlayStation controller, you know, square, triangle, circle, X. This is how I have my face buttons mapped out. L on square, M on triangle, H on circle, and unique on X. So the reason I have the U in that specific position, because the way you use the unique button with a character is the same as any of the strike button. The unique is your fourth attack button. You have light, medium, heavy, unique. So in my opinion, it just makes sense to have it on the face with the other buttons. That's my first recommendation. Recommendation number 2, the skill button. I recommend placing this on R1. That's a very comfortable place to press a button when you need it. And something that I didn't talk about before when it comes to the skill button are doing the different skill strengths. Using Spidey as an example again. Let's say that I want to do web ball. What if I want to do the medium one? Well, that's 236M. How do I do that with the skill button? If I just tap it, he only does the one web. How do I get the multiple webs from the medium? Well, that's easy. You press medium and skill at the same time. So medium and the skill at the same time is very comfortable and very easy to press if it's R1. R1 and triangle, there's a lot of video games that have already programmed you to push those buttons together. So being able to easily do the skill strength that you want, I feel is just another good reason to have R1 as your skill button. Recommendation number 3, the assist, aka assemble button. This is the easy one, L1. Why L1? Because that's the way it's always been in basically every tag fighter ever imaginable. Why specifically L1? Same as the other reasons, it's legacy. Basically in any tag fighter you can think of, L1 is your assist button. So it's something that has worked for years. I don't see why you would change it now. By default, this is X. And I gotta tell you, in my own personal opinion, a face button being your tag button, I just feel is diabolical. So again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would highly recommend switching that button over to L1. And in the same vein, tag button L2. It only makes sense. L1 assist, L2 tag. It's very simple, very straightforward, very easy to memorize. I feel like it can't get much more simple than that. And last recommendation, the quick assemble button, also known as the team attack button. I would dedicate that to R2. This is a button that you need to be able to press at a moment's notice, and it being on a trigger, at least in my opinion, makes it very, very easy for like quick access, because this is a button that you need to press in a reactionary manner. So having it on a trigger, again, to me, makes a lot of sense for a button that you need to have access to very quickly. You need to push as a reaction. So that takes care of all of the basic face buttons. Now, one thing to note, if you decide to use the button mapping that I've recommended, there are 2 distinct actions that you'll have to do manually. The first is to, of course, throw. We did not map a throw button, so you will have to manually throw with M and H. Shouldn't be too bad in my opinion. Once you get used to it, it becomes second nature to just press those 2 buttons when you're about to throw or you feel like a throw is coming. Not a big deal there. And the second one is to manually dash. Now, this is something I haven't talked about yet, but there are 3 different ways of dashing in this game. I already talked about the first one, pressing forward. You can press forward, or back. This game also features a dash macro button. So if you map the dash button, you can press the dash button to dash immediately. But as you notice, we didn't map it because there's just so many buttons that something has to sit out. The alternative, though, you can also press L and M at the same time, and that will allow you to dash. In my opinion, this is a great alternative because L and M, at least to me, is very comfortable to be pressed simultaneously, and this game is very generous with the input. So doing things like running and quickly doing low to the ground air dashes is very easy and consistent simply by pressing up L and M at the same time. Okay, so now we should have a really good understanding of all the basics when it comes to controlling our point character. So now we are finally ready to start talking about tag mechanics. When it comes to breaking down all of Tokon's tag mechanics, I feel the best place to start, as usual, is at the very beginning. What you see on screen right now is the default round start scenario. If you take a look at the team icons in the upper left-hand corner, you'll notice that only 2 of the 4 are currently highlighted. And if you take a look at the assemble gauge underneath the health bar, you'll see that we only have access to 1 assemble gauge, the other 2 are empty. And you take a look at the bottom of the screen, you can see that we only have access to part of our super bar. Again, 2 spots are missing. All of these missing resources are gradually unlocked as the match progresses. This is another one of those really genius ideas that the devs put into place. The fact that you only start out in a 2v2 and then gradually over time build up to 4v4 makes the pacing of the matches feel a lot cleaner. And honestly, it just makes juggling everything much easier. And on top of all of that, it's just extremely fun. Having the knowledge that when the match starts, you have things to unlock and things to look forward to later on in the match really helps the flow of this game feel engaging every single time you hit that rematch button. So now that we know that we have things that need to be unlocked, let's start talking about all the ways of unlocking your teammates and resources. The first and easiest way is by simply triggering a wall break. We haven't discussed this yet, but Tokon is a multi-map game, meaning that there are different areas of the map, and you can reach those areas by triggering a wall break. Every character has at least one special move that's specifically designed to break the wall. For Spider-Man, it's his back special. Universally, you can also use light auto combo. Or by simply landing a throw. Now, as you can see, once the transition goes through and we enter another part of the stage, multiple things have happened. The Green Goblin is now available on my team. If you look at the assemble gauge, I now have 2 bars instead of 1. And if you look at the super gauge at the bottom, I also have an extra gauge of super meter to use. Obviously, gaining access to all these things at once is a huge advantage because now I can call multiple assists instead of just 1. And because I have more assemble and super meter, I have more options for offense and defense as well. This is also a good time to mention something that's unique to this game that's not in a lot of other fighting games, and that is map size. This is also a good moment to mention something that's pretty unique to this game and that is not in a lot of other 2D fighting games, and that is map size. As you just saw, we transitioned from one area to another, but you can't do that forever. Every map has its own amount of areas to the left and right of the starting position. And on this map specifically, New York, there's only one area to the left and one area to the right. So since I already knocked Storm through one map on the right, that means the wall that's behind her now is a true wall. So if I land another throw, I'm not going to send her through the wall. I'm just going to wall splat her. So as you can see, I still unlocked a teammate and some of my gauge. I now have full access to my whole team, full access to all my assemble gauge, and full access to all my super meter. Now, of course, offense isn't the only way to unlock more of your team. You also unlock a team member every time you lose a round. So you can see I KO Storm here. She unlocks Wolverine. So as you can imagine, this system is in place to prevent you from just completely being steamrolled. It would probably feel really bad if you went the whole match without ever getting access to your full team. So even if you end up losing the first or second round, you still have a really good chance of coming back because you're gradually building up your team. And I purposely did this example to show you here. I KO'd Storm without ever breaking a wall. So I still only have 2 characters. Even though I won the round, I'm not granted any characters or gauges for free. I have to actually break the wall So the game is pretty well balanced that even if someone were to get a lot of early momentum and unlock their team quickly, you won't be behind too long, because as soon as you lose a round, you'll get access to a member for free. This honestly might be one of the first fighting games ever where it doesn't actually feel bad to be losing in the beginning, because even when you lose a round, you still get something fun to look forward to every time one of your team members unlocks. Okay, now that we know how to unlock our team members, let's go ahead and finally break down more of the assist mechanics and talk about how to utilize a full team once everyone's been assembled. So taking a look at the team icons in the upper left-hand corner once again, we already talked about the role of the character on top, your point character. This is the character that you're controlling and trying to defeat the opponent team with. However, we haven't talked about the roles of your assists. Each character in each slot actually has their own dedicated role on your team. The character in the first slot, the one currently occupied by Carnage, is the projectile assist. If you press forward and the assist button, that character will come out and do something long range. The character in the middle on the bottom, this is your anti-air assist. This one's summoned by pressing down on the assist button. Anti-air assists are used to stop opponents from jumping in on you or from being in the air in general. The third and final slot is the unique assist. This is done by pressing back in the assist button. Characters in this slot will come out and do something extremely unique to their personal kit. The unique assists are pretty much the strongest assists you have available, and that's why they take the longest to unlock. It takes a little bit of time. You have to at least break 2 walls or sometimes lose 2 rounds before you get access to them. But to compensate for that, they're usually your strongest available assist because they do something that only that character specifically can do. As you can probably imagine, this adds a lot of depth, creativity, and honestly just a lot of fun to the team building in this game, because it really does feel like you're building a unique team because you actually do have to assign roles to each character. Even characters in similar roles can still have completely different assists. If we take the example of the 2 teams we have on the screen right here, you can see that the Carnage projectile assist is nothing like the Magneto projectile assist. So when it's time to start building your own personal team, you're definitely going to have a lot of fun experimenting with a bunch of different characters and a bunch of different roles. Next up, let's talk about tagging. Tagging works almost exactly the same way as assist calls. So if I want to tag, I can simply just press the tag button and boom, I will instantly become the next available character. Now that I've tagged, Carnage has assumed the point character role, so he's the character that I'm now controlling, and Spider-Man has become the assist because he took his place. Now, just like with an assist, I can switch with a specific character by pressing that direction in the tag button. So if I want to switch to the Green Goblin instead of Carnage, I would press down and tag. As you can see, Spidey and Goblin switch places. I'm now controlling the Goblin, and if I call Spidey as an assist, he's now an anti-air assist. And just to take it one step further, what if I switch Goblin with Penny? Now Penny is on point and Goblin is in the back. Now he is the unique assist. So this is an area where the game can get a little complicated, especially when you first start playing. Because of the role system, tagging is both easy and complex at the same time. Because as we just demonstrated, it's super easy to tag. You can tag whenever you want, basically. But the thing is, once you tag, you have to keep in mind of where that character is going because it's going to switch their role. Spider-Man can go from being point to being anti-air, back to being point, back to being projectile. So in the heat of the match, whenever you tag, you're going to have to make a mental note of this character's in this position, that character's in that position, so they're going to do this attack or that attack. That can definitely be really hard when you're first starting out, which is again why you don't have to focus so much on who is where, because they'll still do the same general attack pattern. based on their position. It doesn't really matter who's in that first slot, because it doesn't matter if it's Spidey, Penny, or Gabi, they're all gonna basically shoot something forward. And then the person on the bottom, they're all gonna shoot something upward. And then again, you can just tap the assist button and have something happen. So it's not that complicated. Even when you're starting out, just remember the assist button will always do something. The only one that's like a complete wild card, again, is the unique assist. Everybody's unique assist does something drastically different. So when you're starting out, just keep in mind that simply pressing the assist button will make something happen. So it's not too big a deal where the characters end up, as long as you just keep their specific roles in mind. So that covers all the ins and outs of the quick tag. However, there's one more type of tag we need to discuss that's a little bit more on the advanced side, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes an extremely powerful tool in this game. Okay, so for this example, we're going to start by calling Carnage as an assist, but we're going to take an extra close look at him this time. As you probably noticed, after the assist, he kind of lingers there with an icon over his head. If you press tag while that icon is up, you will then switch places with Carnage while he's still on the screen. This is known as an active tag. An active tag is different from a quick tag because it gives you the ability to set up really strong and unique offensive sequences. Let's do the same example again, but this time, before I tag into Carnage, let me actually do an attack with Spider-Man. Pretty cool, right? While that is a very, very simple and basic example, it should get the point across that while an assist is on screen, your point character is free to move around, which means that the point character can still attack and then become the assist character after they've already attacked. So it's kind of like you're double dipping. Even though my Spider-Man did an assist, I can attack with Carnage and then become Spider-Man. And if I time everything right and layer everything properly, I can get a long string of offense all off of one single assist call. Now, obviously, active tag setups are much more on the advanced side of things, so definitely don't worry about trying to get really strong and advanced, active tag setups when you're first starting out, but keep it in mind for later. It's definitely something to build up to and something to look forward to as you gradually get stronger with your team and more comfortable with the game. Okay, so with that, we've covered the basics of quick tagging, active tagging, and calling your assists. Keeping all those things in mind, it's finally time to start talking about the assemble gauge. The best way to describe the assemble gauge, in my opinion, is that it's there to augment both your offense and your defense. Starting with offense, let's go over some examples of how you can use the assemble gauge to rush the opponent down. So we've already talked a lot about calling your assists at neutral. Neutral being the moment where neither you or the opponent have any sort of advantage over each other. So if I call Carnage at neutral, you can see he comes out and does his attack, and it doesn't cost me anything. Now I'm going to call Carnage again, but this time I'm going to call Carnage in the middle of a string. So you can see there, two things were different. First of all, Carnage did a completely different animation. And second of all, if you notice at the top, that cost me one of my assemble gauges. This is because in order to apply pressure on block, or even to extend your combos, it costs you meter to call your assist. Assists are only free if you call them in the neutral space, but anytime you're actively attacking, it costs you a bar. This is to prevent you from basically rushing the opponent down forever. Because this is a 4v4 game, if you could just get on someone's block and do button, button, assist, button, button, assist, button, button, assist over and over and over, it would pretty much just become a one-player game of whoever gets the first turn. But going back to the offensive side of things, every assist has a generic lariat assist they do if you press the assist button during a string. So if I press my medium here and then I call Carnage, he's going to come out and do a lariat. This is designed to be an easy way to extend your pressure and keep your turn. Ordinarily, if I were to do something like this, you can see that Storm is immediately able to attack after she blocks my medium, meaning that my turn is over. However, if I use my Lariat assist, but as you can see, because the Lariat assist allows me to keep my turn, I was able to continue my offense, and I actually punished her for trying to hit a button there. And of course, if you actually want something specific, you're not limited to the Lariat assist. Let's say that I like this Green Goblin assist here, where he throws 2 different projectiles. I can actually call that on block as well by pressing forward and assist. He'll actually come out and fire the 2 projectiles, which gives me much better pressure options. And yes, you can still active tag even off of this situation. So if I do the exact same example here, I can extend my pressure further with Spidey and then still tag into the Green Goblin. All right, so by now we've gone over a lot of different offense options. Offense is extremely powerful in this game. It's kind of the nature of tag fighters in general. So now it's time to talk about something equally, if not more important, which is defense. Being on the receiving end of offense in this game can feel pretty staggering and oppressive at times. But the good thing is this game does have some pretty great defensive options, most of them revolving around your assemble gauge. So let's go ahead and start breaking some of those down. In total, there are 4 different assemble attacks you can use to defend yourself, all of which cost 1 assemble gauge bar in order to activate. The first one is sort of a hybrid. This is the assemble smash. You simply press the quick assemble button and you'll do this attack here. This is an armored overhead. An overhead, if you don't know, is an attack that will hit an opponent who is crouching. I got Doom here, so he's low blocking, meaning that most of my attacks will be blocked by him. However, if I do this overhead attack, boom, it'll open him up, and you'll see I'll do a team attack with one of my assists. While this can be used as sort of a sneaky surprise attack to catch the opponent off guard, it still functions well defensively because the armor stops the opponent from challenging. The other thing to note is that whenever you connect one of these attacks, you can press the assist button to extend it. It'll cost you an extra assemble gauge bar, but you'll get a much bigger return on investment. Option number 2, the assemble counter. This is done by pressing back in quick assemble. When you do this, your character will do an invincible backdash animation. If the opponent attacks you during this animation, you'll counterattack them instead. This makes it a great option when you're trying to get up off the ground. Now, an important note for this mechanic is that you can still do it if you don't have any assemble gauge left, but it'll just be a much weaker version. Option number 3, the aerial assemble smash, also known simply as just the super dash. This one's really easy and really effective. If you press quick assemble while you're in the air, your character will do this armored lunging animation. The purpose of this is to help against zoning. Zoning in this game is insanely strong. Some characters are incredibly hard to get in on and are very, very good at just completely shutting you out. But that's where the super dash comes in. This move is completely invincible to projectiles. I would strongly recommend making a mental note of this particular mechanic, because when you get into matches, it's going to be very common for especially characters like Doom or Magneto to just be shooting stuff at you like crazy. And if you don't use this mechanic, it's insanely hard to even approach these characters. But utilizing the super dash makes it much, much easier, and it helps you turn the tide on zoners very quickly. And defensive option number 4 is the crossover. This is what's known as a guard cancel. In most other fighting games, this one can only be done while you're blocking. So anytime your opponent locks you down with a string, you have the option of trying to escape out of their pressure completely by simply hitting the quick assemble button while you're blocking. So as you saw there, at the cost of 1 bar, one of your assists will come out and knock the opponent off of you. However, there is one huge caveat to this option. It is not at all guaranteed. If the opponent reacts in time when they see the screen turn white, they can also press quick assemble to counter your crossover. So as you saw there, not only did I not get the opponent off of me, but I got knocked back down and I got disassembled. When you're in the disassemble state, you cannot call any assist or tag until the bar fills up. This is very, very punishing. You basically waste your meter and it's just really not a good time at all. So keep this in mind. When you very first start playing this game, it's going to be common that these crossovers are going to go unchecked. It's kind of hard when you very first start playing to focus on, you know, crafting your own offense and stopping the opponent from crossing over. But once you get the timing down, or if you fight someone who has the timing down, this option becomes more and more risky. So just keep that in mind. It is good for getting people off of you, but you just don't want to be too predictable with it. A subtle but very important aspect of defense in any fighting game is getting up off the ground. In Tokon specifically, you have 3 different ways of getting up off the ground. You can hold up to quickly stand up in place. You can hold back to try and roll away from the opponent. This will roll very far, but at the cost of getting up a little bit slower. If you pay attention to the animation here, you can see that I'm glowing white for a little while. That's because you do have extra invincibility frames when you're standing up, meaning the opponent can't attack you, but that also does mean you're locked in place. So if you're in like the corner, rolling back can be a decent option from time to time because it can throw the opponent off if they're looking to hit you the moment they think you're up. Like the extra invincibility might trick them, but just be very careful with it because again, you can't move for a couple of extra frames. And the third option is to hold forward in order to roll forward. This can be a great option for rolling out of the corner. But be warned, this is an option that most opponents are going to be looking for. So if you try to roll forward in the corner to escape, there's a good chance they might backdash to keep you trapped. When it comes to rolling, the best advice I can give is just don't be predictable. Don't use the same option too many times, because once the opponent feels comfortable, they know where you're going to be. It's no longer a guess for them on how to continue their offense once you're getting up. At that point, you're just going to eat more pressure like over and over. So try to keep them guessing by changing the options you choose frequently. All right, so with that, we've covered almost every way of utilizing our assemble gauge. So now let's talk a little bit more about how to spend our super meter. As we talked about a little bit earlier, your super gauge allows you to do enhanced attacks such as your EX moves, which cost 25 meter or 1 bar. You can also do super attacks, which cost you 50 of your meter. Another really cool mechanic we haven't covered yet is the ability to DHC. If you do a super with your point character and it connects, you can hold down the assist button, and as long as you have the meter, the next character will immediately come in and do their super as well. In order to DHC, a couple of things have to happen. You have to have first the meter to do the super, so you need 50 meter. Second, you need at least 1 assemble gauge, so 1 green bar. And third, the character has to actually be available as an assist. And third, the character has to actually be available as an assist. So let's look at a quick example here. I'm going to go ahead and call Spider-Man. And then while Spider-Man is on cooldown, I'm going to do Carnage's super. So pretty straightforward, right? In that example, I'd already spent Spider-Man as an assist before the super, so me holding down the assist button during my super called the next available character, which was the Green Goblin. And yes, as long as you have enough meter and assemble gauges, you can link together 3 full supers. Now, besides your super, you also have your ultimate. Your ultimate does way more damage than the super. It usually has a buff attached to it, and it costs twice as much. It costs 100 meter. It's definitely worth it though, not only for the damage, but again, because most characters get some sort of buff. Be sure to check each character's command list to see what kind of buffs they receive from landing their ultimate. And saving the best for last, there's one more super attack that we haven't talked about, and that is your Tokon super. This one is the big one. It's got a lot of stipulations, but if you actually manage to land it, not only do they all look incredibly cool, but Tokon supers do insane amounts of damage. This is effectively the game's comeback mechanic. So, what are the stipulations? There's a couple of them. Number 1, you have to have a full team. They don't all have to be available. You can spin the assist, but they just have to be unlocked. Number 2, you need 150 meter. Your meter has to be maxed out at 150, or you can't activate it. And number 3, the most strict stipulation of all, it has to be the final round for the opponent. Meaning, if the opponent wins this next round, they win the game. This is why it's essentially only a comeback mechanic. If you're ahead, like let's say that you're about to win the match, you can't use it. However, if you're behind and your opponent is about to win the match, then it unlocks. Once all the stipulations have been met, you can press the skill button and the assist button together at the same time to activate it.
Get in here already! Keep this up! Impressive. Give me a nice painful scream! Louder! I said louder! I'm having fun. How's it for you?
Sheesh. So yeah, as you can see, although there are a lot of stipulations, it's more than worthwhile if you can actually pull it all together and land this in an actual match. All right, we're almost at the end. Now that we understand all the mechanics, we know how to structure our offense, and we know how to defend ourselves. The last thing to talk about now is how to structure our combos. So when it comes to combos in this game, being as it is a tag fighter, combos are going to be extremely character specific. A Spider-Man combo is not going to be anything like a Green Goblin combo. The Green Goblin combo is not going to be anything like a Penny Parker combo. But that doesn't mean this game doesn't have a universal B&B system. When you first get on the game, obviously you're not going to know all the characters' optimal routes, and you're probably not going to be content with just doing auto combos. So let's quickly go over this game's universal B&B and how it works. So pretty universally across the board, anytime you connect a crouching medium, it's going to knock the opponent off their feet. So what you want to do is you want to do a crouch medium and then a stand. This is another reason why I recommended starting your offense with lights. Because in a situation where you do something like this and you actually connect, you can go directly in to crouch medium, stand medium. So from there, after the stand medium connects, what you're going to want to do is jump. This is called a jump cancel. By hitting up forward, you can cancel the animation into a jump, which allows you to continue the combo. So from here, we have a lot of options, but the simplest one would be to do a string of LMH. So far, so good. Now, once the H connects, we still have another air action left. Because remember, once you jump in the air, you're still allowed to air dash or air jump. When we connect our H in the air, we can cancel that into a jump as well. So basically, you would just repeat the process that you just did one more time. Pretty straightforward. And from there, in order to knock the opponent down, you can do air down heavy. That's always going to spike the opponent into the ground. But the problem with that is the opponent is not always going to be at the right height. Like you see right there, I tried to do it and Loki was gone. He was way above me. I was nowhere near him, so my combo dropped. A way to prevent this from happening is anytime you press the same button twice in the air, your character will always get the spike and they'll even track in the air. So you saw that time I didn't miss him. Spider-Man actually tracked Loki in the air because once I got to the H, I simply pressed H again and that ended the combo. This works anytime you press a button twice. So now that we've used up all of our basic actions, now's the time to call in our assist. If we do everything that we just did, but press the assist button after the kick, we can summon our assist to extend the combo further. So as you can see, after the spike, Carnage comes in, hits them off of the floor and causes them to tumble. Once the tumble hits, I'm allowed to hit them again. Pretty straightforward. Depending on the resources you have, you can even try going for another rep. When it comes to comboing off of stray hits, don't forget what I said about the air auto combo. Stray hits are a great place to use the double button method. Let's say, for example, in the middle of a match, you call your anti-air assist and it spikes the opponent up in the air. As you can see, the opponent recovers pretty quickly, so you got to be pretty quick to get the combo. If they get spiked up and you jump and you flail around, you're not going to get it. However, if I just do something simple like press medium, boom, I'm guaranteed to spike them into the ground. So as long as I'm ready, I should be able to get that every time. And the nice thing about this is, remember, a raw assist does not cost you any gauge. So when they get popped up and you actually get the conversion, you can then call an actual assist at the cost of just 1 bar and get a real combo out of it. And with that, we have reached the end of my how to play guide for Marvel Tokon. Thanks so much for listening, guys. If you made it this far, hopefully you feel like you learned everything you need to know. I tried to pack this with as much important information as I could. Hopefully it wasn't too overwhelming. There's things that I didn't want to leave out, things that I felt like, needed to be said. So this is a little on the lengthy side, but I feel like it's all good information. Tag games like this, they have a lot of moving pieces, so there's inevitably a lot to explain. If you did enjoy the guide, again, I would really appreciate a like. It helps out videos like this a ton, and I greatly appreciate it. If you want to see more from me, consider subscribing, as I am just beginning my uploading. I'm going to be uploading all sorts of content for this game in the future, matches, match reviews, guides, all sorts of stuff. Whatever you can think of, I'm going to be doing it. If you have more questions, post them in the comment section below. I always keep an eye on my comments. If there's something here that you didn't understand, or if you have more questions, feel free to ask me down in the comments below, and I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. But with all that being said, once again, I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for checking out the channel. Y'all have a good one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.